Alright everyone, welcome along. So we had a look last week, didn't we, at what it goes and what it takes to build a calendar and to get started with a calendar. Now the reason we've done it this way round, because normally we should start with what we're doing this week before we do the calendar, is because I want to really focus your mind on what the calendar is and what the point of it actually is as well. So we'll go through, let's talk about it, let's work it out, and then we'll see a bit more information about what it takes to be a star in the world of Kimball. Alright, so here we are, aren't we? We're back to looking at our New York water towers and their inspections. So what is a Kimball schema? Okay, a Kimball schema, and you hear it talked about, and you often hear it referred to as a Star Schema as well. But the Kimball schema is about allowing you to allocate your data and store it most effectively. And it comes down to determining the data forms one of two elements. So it's either a description or it's about an event. So the descriptions are what you use to describe things. So your whats, your wheres and your whens. So what happened, where and when. And then your event is of course that when you combine it together, Ross went and did something on Tuesday, yeah? It becomes a fact, and that's then an event that you have in that concept and the context of a Kimball schema. So you have facts in terms of events, and you have descriptions in terms of dimensions. Now, the context for all this is if we go right back and we think about this table that I've built here, right, just as a sample sort of a table, is people work in terms of rows. And the way that we normally work with data in a transactional sense is in terms of rows. So here we can see that on the 12th of March, Jeff bought a laptop for £1,234 with a 5% discount. And that makes sense for us. That's an event, that's a transaction that's happened. And a lot of the data that we receive and that we need to start our analysis against is in the format of this. So this is not uncommon, something like this that we'll get. It's generally a lot wider and there'll be lots and lots more columns in terms of, well, what type of laptop was it? What exactly other things, was there a time associated with it? There's probably more information about Jeff as well. That's all potentially in that big, massive table. But we're just going to focus on these 5 columns for now. So what we have is we have descriptors, yeah, the date, the product and the customer. And then we have the facts about the event, so the price and the discount. Discount's always a tricky one, but for now we'll call it part of the event. So the event, that was it, yeah? So what you can see is you've kind of got descriptors, which would form our dimensions. We want a calendar dimension, which we built last week, and we can talk about some more. We want a product dimension, and we want a customer dimension. So almost we've brought this concept back, haven't we? If we go back that slide to see that we have a calendar, a product, and a customer. All together, that forms an order as we join those together. So the descriptors of the fact are the dimensions, and the sale or the order is the fact. When we come to do analysis, we're not interested in the rows though, are we? What we're interested in is the column. So we'll say here, what were the total sales, sum of price, that we had? And we've got 4,563 there. But the context that we need for analysis is, well, what was Jeff? What were the total sales to Jeff? What were the total sales on a particular date? And we can see those values there. So all of a sudden we've moved from it being all about a row to it actually being about a column, and then how we exclude or select elements of that column. And that's really the cornerstone of an analytical model. So Kimball allows us to pull that together, and because we've used descriptors, we can actually expand on those descriptors. So at the level that we had before, we talked about it, didn't we? Where we said that a laptop is pretty rubbish. And we might want to say, well, is it a Surface Pro? Is it a Surface Pro 8 or 9? Or is it a MacBook Air MacBook Air M2 or a frame laptop because we want to be all environmentally friendly. Because you've got the capability of expanding that dimension and knowing that that product will always link in, but there's more information, more classification, more sub-classification that's fed into that dimension, it means you're not having to repeat and restore that data multiple times. So this is then the final part that the Kimball schema brings, in that it brings a lot of efficiency. And it does this through a process. It's called normalization. So where you remove data from being stored multiple times to storing it once and reusing it. So you then reuse that data that is consistent. It's a normalized data set. So we'll cut over now into Power BI Desktop and let's have a look at the model that this relates to. And we can also look at the spreadsheet that it started from and take it from there. So here we are in Power BI Desktop. What you can see on the left is exactly as we had before in the Kimball schema, in our little screenshot. So we've got the calendar, we've got the product, we've got the customer, and then we've got the orders. And we can see they're joined together. The data is related. So what that means is that for every row that we've got in the orders table, it will have, if you follow a customer ID, to a customer ID in the customer table, and that customer ID will have the information about the customer. So where they live, their segment, their name, that information is all held there, related, remember that, related, using that ID field. Likewise for our products. So we've got products that have product IDs, and then that product ID will relate to the product name. It will also tell us more information about the product. So is it a laptop? Is it a desktop? Is it stationary? Is it something else? All of that together allows us to really start to understand and analyze our data. And we can see, if we look at the data side of it, that the calendar is just the calendar that we've seen before. Our customer, we can see, are they a consumer? Are they corporate? Are they a home office customer? They've got a postal code, so this is US based, so like their zip codes. And we've got a name for them. Now, because we've got a zip code, what we've done with this is we can take it the next step through. So we can take geography from that zip code. So we can take, well, these are the zip codes, these relate to a specific city in the state, in the US, and the region of the US. So we could actually start to really break down and follow our analysis. And that's all because of the facts, the dimensions, and the normalization of data. So what do I mean by that? So in practice, if we look at here, where we've got just a simple chart showing us sales by month, okay? Again, the dimension. So each month across the years as our legend. But we could decide, well, we want to know sales in a particular region. So we could drag that in, okay? We could choose to drag state in as well, right? And then let's make that a slicer, okay? So we could say, well, what are the sales like in the West? What are the sales like in the East? We could expand that and say, well, in New York, what are our sales like? And we could see and then gauge and understand. But the question that we're going to get time and again, isn't it, is, well, how does that relate to our products? So if I copy that and duplicate it, and we then bring in product and subcategory, and let's drop the other two out. Okay, so we can start to see technology sales in New York. Very quick, very easy. And it's all made possible now that you're starting to sit and think, right, he's talking about dimensions on the right-hand side. It all makes sense. Okay, this is what you will do as you start to build your Power BI models. You will start to have to think in terms of, what am I having to do to this data to get something out that I need? So if we have a look back at the original source, I'll see if you can figure out what you would need to do. And of course, you can try for yourselves. So here we have the original source data that I've used for this table. Okay, it's nothing secret. It's publicly available data set, Superstore data set is actually from Tableau of all places, but it's a really useful data set for kind of learning a bit about what you need to do and how you need to be modeling your data. So we start, we've got order numbers, we've got order dates, we've got shipment dates, we've got the mode of shipping. Again, you might want to analyze how many went first class, second class. Do you have some other way of doing it? You've got your customer ID and then all the information about the customer. Now, as you can see, you've ended up with this really big, wide row. But what you're really going to want to know is, well, what are the sales on the 8th of November, 2016? That's kind of the question that you'd have, isn't it? What are the sales on this? How many times, or how many laptops did we sell in Pennsylvania? It kind of, those are the more business questions that you'll get. And that's what we need to be able to do. And that's what the Kimball schema allows us to do. And using it, it makes it much quicker to do analysis, because filtering of tables is much more efficient for a system rather than trying to do it through a big row where you've got lots of data. It's like that. The way that the joins work makes it more efficient. So what have you reckoned then? The Kimball schema and the way it works in terms of taking a dimension and allowing you to say this part of a dimension rolls up into this level. So your laptop, your Surface Pro is a laptop, which is a computer, which is under your technology side. All of those things which will flow down will need to be worked through, understood and attributed correctly, so that you can analyze and see what is going on in your business. So hope that made sense. Again, that was a really quick tour of Kimball, but I'm trying to keep everything shorter, keep it briefer. We will revisit lots of elements of this because it's really important that it really lands and that you're going, yeah, I get all that. So let's keep going, keep trying it some more. Stay safe, take care, ta-da.